How you going, girls and boys, and welcome to the channel. So, episode 3 on the Tough HQ build. About 2 months ago was my last upload on this one, and honestly it has been an absolute hell of a time to get to the point where we are now, the present. So part 3 was going to be just focusing on the front half of the car, but it ended up turning out to be a lot more work than what I originally thought it was going to be. But anyway, I will narrate the best I can throughout the workings, I suppose. What you're looking at there is the nose cone. So this is actually aftermarket nose cone road support, and there you go. It's surface rust under the E-coat. That's why if you ever weld in your car panel or something like that, and you don't take that stuff off and put a good epoxy primer on it, you're going to get rust in it pretty soon. So very important stuff to clean that up and not just chuck it on and hope for the best. Now, probably one of the Achilles heels of these HQ to WB series cars is the car panels. And honestly, this one being a low mileage car, it held up pretty well. The driver's side was actually rust free, but the passenger side, it had a lot of rust in the pillar, and it had a patch welded in, and the fitment just wasn't really that good overall. So I kind of tossed up and I made the call to just replace it, which I'll have in another video coming up in the following week after this one. And it would just, it made more sense to replace it rather than just try and fix it up and try and paint side the plenum and so on and so forth. But anyway, there's a bit of a look at the patchwork after I ground all the bog out of it. Obviously there's no bonnet on the car, but I've kind of gotten the panels kind of sitting where they're meant to, although very dented and a bit rusty. This guard had a patch welded in it and it just never really fitted. As you can see, the sill panel is still a bit rusty at the front there where it's had a patch panel put in. Yeah, there's the driver's side car panel end there. So that one was actually pretty good. And honestly, I'm a little bit ashamed to say that I did, crudely take that car panel off and, turfed it. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible. And there's really no point saving half of a car panel if I'm, replacing it with an aftermarket one. But here's a bit of a look at the fitment between the guard and the nose cone. Now, obviously this is an aftermarket nose cone and rod support, so there's always a lot of talk about them not fitting up with the guards nicely. I've fitted a few of them. Sometimes they are a little bit ordinary, but this one actually fit up pretty good to the guards. But you'll see later in the piece that there is quite a lot of modifications in the front panel just to get them to all fit up nicely. As you can see, the nose cone was sort of overhanging the guard a little bit, but that was more of an issue with the guard, if anything. Now that we've got the bonnet on, you can really see just how out of alignment the front panels is on this car. Sometime in its life, this car's had a smash, and although the wheelbase hasn't changed on the car, the chassis isn't quite aligned. It's clocked a little bit one way. Time to sit down and talk about it. I couldn't tell you which way, but it threw the front panels out, which is why I ended up having to do a lot of modifications to them. So unfortunately, these will be one-off HQ custom panels. You definitely won't be able to take that guard or the nose cone or anything like that off and put it onto another car. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm building this car. I'm not building 10 others. That guard is for this car, and so on and so forth. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. It's just part of the game that you're playing with 50-year-old cars. Anyway, what I'm doing in the video is I'm basically just trying to match up the panel edges as best as I can before I start chopping and changing things. Sometimes on an old car you get a bit of panel diving. A corner might be a little bit low from someone taking the bonnet off and sitting it up on its rear corners or something like that. So it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. So adjusting that bonnet catch, even though we will not be using it on this car, I find it is best to get everything closing and latching down before you try and radically change something. So to correct my panel gaps on this one, I ended up having to lengthen one guard and shorten the other one. Now this one I am shortening, so I ended up cutting like a bit of a wedge shape out of it, and basically ended up just ratchet strapping the nose cone and rad support just to pull it up. You know, it's not ideal, it's not the most fun job, nor is it glamorous, but it certainly does the trick, especially when you're needing to, you know, really correct something, because I mean the bonnet gap on that side was I think around 10 mil, and as you can see this side has about nothing. And you know, when you want a consistent 6 mil gap across the bonnet and the nose cone, you kind of just need to do what you need to do. So yeah, as you can see, that one's been pulled forward. That one took a bit of work to hammer around and get back into shape. But I mean, it's all pretty basic metal manipulation kind of stuff. You know, tack it once it's close, hammer and dolly it a little bit, tack it again, and you know, maybe it needed a little bit of a slice here and there, and you know, just basically fill it up with a bit of MIG, and yeah, before you know it, you've got your bonnet to nose cone gap sorted out. So the rest of the fitment of the aftermarket nose cone to the bonnet, it did just need a bit of a hammer around, basically just to move that edge just forward a little bit, just to sort of open that gap up a little bit. You can kind of bend the top of the nose cone down a little bit, which will open up the bonnet gap, but you know, you can't always get away with that. Alright, so we're starting to uncover the mess underneath that patch panel. As you can see, that's not a very pretty one. But anyway, we'll kind of just, you know, gloss over this a little bit. Like I was saying earlier, I will have another video on the cow panel replacement in greater detail. So if you haven't already, subscribe and you know, stay up to date with that. So that's the plenum all repaired, coat of the Worth rust converter, 3 coats of Epitech epoxy primer, and that's basically sealed off all of that, ready for further workings. Now the aftermarket cow panel, I ended up just giving that a quick whip blast, obviously get rid of the awful E-coat, and like I said, with the plenum coat of epoxy primer, and then that's all sealed up, ready for further coatings. So moving on with another job, obviously these lower pillars are a little bit rusty. Front half of this sill has had a patch welded in it at some point, pretty ugly. I didn't want to replace full sill panels on this car, so I made that call not to do that. And you know, being it is a low mileage car originally, it didn't really need it. The rest of the sill was actually really clean. I would say the sill panel had rusted out mainly because of that, you know, inside your plenum and, you know, the rusty pillar and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't actually a sill panel failure, to put it that way. But yeah, anyway, there's a bit of a look. Replaced that lower pillar. Obviously I've got a section of sill panel folded up, and yeah, just like that. I have got a sill panel replacement video if you're out there looking for it. I didn't really go in too depth with the filming on this stuff because, like I said, I have a video on it already. I'm not one of these guys who just wants to rehash the same thing over and over again. You know, if I can do it once, all well and good. I'll just give you guys a brief kind of look over. And yeah, there you go. There's a section of sill panel replaced. Onto the driver's side now. As you can see, I mean, like the inside of the sill panel on this car was really nice for a 50-year-old car. Just had a little bit of a hole welded up at some point, and you know, this side was copped a bit of damage, so that was the reason why I replaced that front half of the section. The pillar was really nice. It basically, you know, a straightforward section replacement of the sill panel. You know, bit of a rust protection coating on there, and yeah, put him on. Pretty straightforward, fits up nice. yeah, does the job. Doesn't really look like it's even been replaced, that section. But now that we've got the sill panel sorted out, we can then move forward with the guards. I did notice this car, it really didn't want to have the guards sitting in all the way. So what I ended up doing was I ended up trimming a little bit off the edge just there, just so it allowed the clips to move out forward, well, out towards myself a little bit more, and that basically helped that alignment of the lower guard to door and sill panel. Which, yeah, I was really happy with that. I didn't think I would have to modify that part of the car, but you know, like I was saying, it really benefited. Now, what I'm doing in the video here is I just noticed the front edge of this guard was a little bit rolled in, so I ended up just slicing it and moving it out a little bit, tacking it up, and then obviously took the guard off and welded it off the car. And basically what that did was it just straightened up that edge just a little bit instead of diving in towards the wheel. Anyone who plays around with HQs will know the lower guard sections are always a bit how you going. But yeah, it didn't really take a whole lot to correct that one, and you know, it fitted up a lot nicer after that. Now, with the driver's side guard done, it was time to move on to the passenger side guard, which needed a hell of a lot of work. It had a pretty average patch panel welded in the bottom there, and obviously it needed a lower section, and the gap between the guard and the door was pretty crap, to put it bluntly. So same with the panel to panel fitment. So after I got that brace removed, I ended up chucking the whole guard in the shrinker stretcher, and basically I think I ended up lengthening the guard just a little bit just by taking out a little bit of that bowingness out of the back edge of the guard. Now, like I did end up replacing the edge, but I just thought I would get it done on the original edge of the guard, and you know, then it basically straightened up the existing, you know, the rest of the guard that I was obviously keeping. Folded up that edge, matched that to the door, tacked it in, and then it was time to make up a lower section, because obviously this one had a pretty poorly done little patch. So anyway, there's my section that I folded up, you know, out of this world, but do the job. I did make a little press and die set, so I can press in those little details, even though they're not, you know, 100% right. I mean, they're pretty close. It'll do the job anyway. So yeah, there it is, all clear-coated in. I got the brace all screwed up into place. Yeah, basically just made it fit. That's all there really was to it. Yeah, but you know, it all come up pretty nice. Obviously, new edge, lower section of the guard. Another common problem that people will know with if you play around with HQs is the back edge of the guards will never actually fully overlap on that rear part of the brace. So as you can see on that rusted edge on the back edge of that panel that I'm fitting in right now, there's large sections of it where it is fitting, and then there's really narrow sections where it's not fitting. So sometimes it's better to just, you know, take that out and get it to fit actually nicely in there, and you know, it'll help a lot of other things in the long run. Another one of my jobs for this car was to fit up the aftermarket hidden wiper motor setup, and honestly, that was a nightmare of a job. Definitely was not just a bolt-in fit up. I spent so many hours on that, just trialing error and yeah, just trying to get it to work, but I got there in the end. Another little job was to fill in the column hole in the firewall, because obviously this car's going to be running a billet column. So yeah, we wanted to make that look nice as well. Back on with the passenger side guard on this side. So I ended up just tacking a bar from the sill panel to the lower guard section just to basically help get it to fit up, and obviously drilled my holes and whatnot, got it all bolted up. Yeah, then it was time to fully weld out those sections. Obviously I could do that off the car because it made it a hell of a lot easier. Yeah, come up pretty well in the end. All my fitment was pretty nice, and you know, like I say, that's, you know, that's half the battle with these jobs. Getting your fitment right of your patch panels and whatnot. You know, if you get that right, you can basically just go stupid and just weld it. As you can see, come up pretty well. Only a few little spots I needed to touch up. That's obviously without hammer and dolling anything, so that's straight off the MIG, straight off the grinder. Plenty of penetration on the backside, and then it's time to hammer and dolly it straight again. Here's a bit of a look at the backside, so all that got cleaned up as well. Obviously the rear inner structure bracing part of it, I had to patch that up as well, got that fitting to the car, and then yeah, it was time for a bit of rust converter, weld through primer and stick her in. So obviously with that rear brace all clear-coat in, it was then time to hammer and dolly the hemmed edge over. So I ended up leaving this edge a little bit wide because I wanted plenty of attachment for my welding. So unlike the original setup where it was only a little bit holding on, mine's got plenty, so there shouldn't be any issues of the spot welds detaching themselves from that inner brace and it just basically floating around in there like it was in a few spots. Another fun little job was the accelerator little bulge thing on the Firewall. The owner wanted that flush with the rest of the blanked off heater box, so I ended up putting a little patch in there and, you know, tidying it up. But that's pretty much the guards sorted out and all the engine bay stuff sorted out for the time being. It's time to work on the front panels. So as you can see, the guard to nose cone fitment is pretty damn nice now. Obviously the nose cone's fitting up the bonnet pretty well. I did need to split it a little bit just to sort of correct it a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it was just a few areas where it just needed a little bit of movement. And the guards, they needed to move out a hell of a lot. So I ended up making this little gapping tool. It's about 6 mil wide. So, you know, basically cut it, move it, stick my tool in, and tack it up and so on and so forth. But yeah, as you can see, the gaps on this one are pretty crap. Originally, they were very tight. It's a common problem for the HQs. So yeah, basically, like I said, split it, weld it, and yeah, grind it up, make it all even. And yeah, come up pretty well in the end. I did end up having to split the top of the nose cone as well, just to kind of match it up with the bonnet a little bit more. I can't remember if I actually did film that, but yeah, like I was saying, it come up pretty well in the end. All pretty consistent, and yeah, pretty happy with that. So it's not common that you get a HQ front to fit as well as that. But yeah, I'm pretty happy that I did. So with the front stripped off, it's now time to paint the inside of the plenum and the underside of the cow panel. Now obviously it's a pretty good idea to try and make this last as long as possible, so give it a good rub, seam seal what you need to seam seal, and you know, chuck on a good coat of paint in there. Like I was saying earlier, if you just leave your E-coat straight out of the box from Rare Spares or wherever you bought your stuff from, it's not going to last very long. It's going to surface rust, and then that surface rust is going to turn into very deep rust, and then it will be rust holes before you know it. So if you've got it apart, put a good coat of paint in there and it should last a long time, and you know, you probably won't have to revisit it in your lifetime. Now you're probably wondering, oh, that looks like a different shed. Well, you'd be damn right, it is a different shed. I ended up needing a little bit more room, so I got another shed. That's probably another reason why this video has taken so long to come out. I've also moved, and obviously moved workshop as well, so got myself a little bit more room, a bit more comfortable, and yeah, this is just going to be just for metal work. Obviously I'll still do any painting and stuff in my other shed, but yeah, that's pretty much what this one's for. Anyway, so we'll just sit back and we'll enjoy this boring filler content, you know. Kind of just make this video draw out as long as we can. No, we won't do that. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll get back into the interesting content. Now, the interesting content part is refining the panel gaps. So the doors and stuff, yeah, they kind of fitted up a bit average. I'd gotten them fitting as best as I can, and you know, they still needed a bit of tweaking. So out came the grinder, bit of weld, you know, Bob's your uncle, we got nice gaps again. A few of the areas needed some of this 3mm filler rod added to them, and you know, we basically just build up that edge a little bit, grind it back, and before you know it, you got really nice gaps. So like I was saying before, my panel tooling gap thing that I made, it's about 6mm wide. Now I'm hoping by the time this one's body worked and painted and you know, all the stages in between that, I'm hoping for it, you know, around 4.5 to 5mm wide panel gaps. So still pretty presentable. You know, obviously you don't want too big or too tight. You know, I just want everything to kind of be matched as much as possible. So, you know, I spent the time, I went through each individual gap. The only one I hadn't done is the boot lid, because obviously there's no tub work or anything in the rear end. So the bonnet hinges, boot hinges, sorry, are basically just floating around. So that was the only one I didn't touch. Yeah, anyway, but yeah, they come up pretty well in the end. As you can see, the original door to aftermarket car panel fitment's a little bit off. That's more of a problem with the door than the car panel. I find the car panels are actually really good. It's just the E-coat that I don't like. But yeah, sorted all that out, got it all fitted up pretty nice. Back out with the paper templates, because I still needed to put in the reverse curve in the guard and the nose cone, match it up with the door a little bit better. Now the tool I use for that is something I just made myself. It's just a little smooth face slapper. It's really good for setting in lines, that kind of stuff. And yeah, worked the trick for this one. Obviously there was a few little areas that I needed to pull up. Hammer and dolly it. Just, you know, basically make everything as nice as possible as I can in metalwork without spending a whole, you know, ton of time on it. At the end of the day, this car will end up getting skimmed bumper to bumper to basically just iron out the, you know, 2% of the irregularities that are left over from the metalwork stages. But anyway, I ended up giving the whole body 40 and then an 80 grit on the orbital, and ended up coating it with the Resto finish after blast, so that's why it looks a little bit cleaner now. Hasn't got the phosphate coating from the dioxidine on it. Yeah, basically just did it so it looks nicer. Hopefully should hold off the surface rust. We'll see how well that product, you know, holds up. Yeah, there you go. There's a HQ Holden all gapped up, you know, panel to panel fitment. Yeah, it's all pretty sweet now. Yeah, as you can see, got those reverse curves in nice and defined. Ended up spending a little bit more time on the rear quarters on this car as well, just getting them right. Yeah, what else is there to say? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one, whenever that will be. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video.